Welcome to Vrindavan. Krishna and the Cowherd Boys. Every day they would play a new game. They never repeated a game for a single day. Every day was new. And their mothers never packed the same lunch for them when they went out to graze the cows. There was an ever fresh variety, and yet there was an ever fresh familiarity in all their interactions and dealings and the adventures. And let's see what happened on this particular day. One day when Krishna was 5 years old, that night, while returning from the forest, he told his friends that evening, he said, "My dear friends," and when Krishna would make an announcement, these were the evening announcements just before the boys went back home, eagerly waiting for the next day when they would be back with Krishna again. And that night, Krishna made the final announcement of the day. "Tomorrow, dear friends, please tell your mothers to pack some nice breakfast and lunch. We're going on a picnic." And when he said this word picnic, there was such excitement. Everyone was telling each other, "Picnic? Where are we going?" Oh, and the elder boys tried to calm down the younger ones. The younger ones were so curious, and the elder ones were like taking over and deciding, "Okay, okay, let's see. Okay, yeah, go home, go home." And then Krishna was getting excited, and they couldn't leave. And finally, Krishna had to say, "Go home so that we can sleep and start the picnic." And with much separation and much eagerness, they all ran home. And the first words before their mothers could even welcome, they were, "Picnic, picnic, we want breakfast, we want lunch." "Okay, okay, calm down, calm down. No, you have to make a very good picnic breakfast and a really good lunch. Pack it really well so that we can give it to Krishna and Krishna enjoys." And you made this something that day, and can you make something like that? And someone was saying this, someone was saying that, and some of the boys were pacing back and forth thinking, "Okay, we're going to play this game and that game." And some of the boys, there was such excitement that night. They couldn't, none of the boys could sleep. And that excitement went on to their parents. And the parents were so excited. And soon the news spread in all the homes, "Tomorrow is picnic day." The entire village knew it. And the parents had great difficulty putting the cowherd boys to sleep. Some were 5 years old, some were 6 and 7, and some were 4 and 3. And they were all going to go for the picnic together. And there were thousands and hundreds and thousands of boys. When Krishna, when God decides to do something, He's not going to do small. It would be so funny if He said, "Oh, Krishna had a few 13, 14 friends." No, mate. There were thousands and hundreds and thousands of boys, and each having thousands and hundreds and thousands of cow. No, sorry, not cows, not yet. They weren't old enough to take the cows to graze. They would take the little calves to graze, but they had thousands of them. And so the news reached the calves too. And the cows were more, telling their moms, "We are leaving early tomorrow." And the moms were trying to put them to sleep. And as soon as this news reached the mothers, they were excited and anxious because they knew these boys, we don't know what they do in the forest. We don't know how they'll take care of themselves. And in their innermost hearts, they were actually saying, "We don't know how they'll take care of Krishna. This little delicate boy, why do they even have to go to the forest? We can take care of the cows, and the cows, let's just protect them in our village and home, and we'll give them everything they want right here." But the boys wanted to go and have fun and be with themselves and play. So, with a happy and a heavy heart, the mothers spent the entire night preparing something great, something beautiful for the coward boys to eat in the morning and to give it to Krishna. With Krishna in their minds and with their children and all the children in their minds, with all their love, someone made rasagullas, and someone made gulab jamuns, and someone made puris and sabjis, and someone made all the Western recipes. Every recipe on earth was definitely there from all cuisines all over the world. And then finally, as the night passed, and some of the boys could not wait for the night to pass. And they kept asking, it's time to go? And they said, no, it's not even night yet. Go to sleep. And finally, the morning came. And in the morning, as soon as the first rays of the sun hit the sky, there was a loud shout in all the houses, picnic! And the boys were running here and there, putting on their clothes, half putting on their clothes. Some wanted something, and there was a very happy and eager chaos. And there was such excitement, and the mothers were excited, the fathers were excited, the cows were excited, everyone was excited. And finally, they were waiting for a special signal. These 5-year-old boys, they wanted to have their secret. They didn't want the parents to know their secrets. So the parents were wondering what's going on, and suddenly Krishna came out like a proud little king and put a bugle horn to his mouth, and with all his little strength, he blew it so hard the entire village of Vrindavan vibrated with that loud sound, and the boys shouted, opened doors burst open, and everyone ran towards Krishna. All the cows ran towards Krishna, and they all had a gigantic assembly before the picnic. And all the parents also came running to see what's going on. And Krishna made the next announcement. Is everybody here? Yes, Haribol, we are here, ready to go. And Krishna said, all right, let's leave. And no sooner had he said these words, some cowherd boys were off running into the forest. Some were behind, some were in the middle, some were with Krishna, some were behind him, some were all over the place. But Yashoda, she couldn't let Krishna go. And as soon as Krishna made this announcement and he left, she said, Krishna, wait, you just wait for 1 minute more. Krishna turned around and said, Mother, yes, what is it? She said, just one last adjustment. I made this beautiful turban for you, but I just have to adjust this one thing. It's not looking good. Krishna said, you were decorating me for the past 2 hours. Are you not done? She said, no. And made a small adjustment and said, perfect. Now you may go. And Krishna turned and she said, Krishna, just come back 1 minute more. She said, Mother, my friends are waiting. I can't keep them waiting. She said, but your dhoti, I don't want it to get stuck. I just have to pick it up a little bit, tuck it in, and she's decorating her sweet 5-year-old boy, and she just couldn't let him go. And she was torn. She wanted him to be happy and play with his friends. And at the same time, she wanted to be with him and play with him and express her love to him. And finally, after a with a heavy heart, she said, all right, I've made all my adjustments. Please go. And then Krishna left. And all the cowherd men and women, they were standing as far as they were allowed to go by these little boys. The little boy said, that's it. Don't join us for our picnic. Stay here. We are going for our picnic. And they left. And until the last particle of dust didn't settle in the horizon, the parents kept watching. Where are we going? How far? And here on the other side, the boys were thrilled and excited, and they were running and playing. And today, they were going to play the imitation game. And all of these thousands of boys, they went into this beautiful forest of Vrindavan. And they were taking a special route today. And they were going to a special place wherever Krishna wanted. Sometimes Krishna led, sometimes they led, sometimes one cowherd boy said something, sometimes another said something, sometimes a cowherd boy said, this way, and everyone followed. Someone said, this way, and then everyone followed. And then Krishna would say, this way, and they would follow. And everyone was leading and joining, and suddenly one boy saw a frog. And he bent down, ribbit, ribbit, and made a sound and imitated the frog. And all the cowherd boys held their bellies and rolled in laughter. And they said, they clapped for this boy. Perfect, perfect. Suddenly, one boy said, ooh, ooh. And he started imitating the koel. And then all the boys clapped, and someone imitated a peacock and then a monkey. And suddenly, one boy saw a ferocious monkey and and started doing that, and the monkey became even more ferocious, and then 2 more boys joined him, and then there was a competition between the monkeys and the cowherd boys. And then some of them saw the birds in the sky, and flapping their hands, they would chase their shadows. And in this way, they were all over the forest. And soon it was breakfast time. They had built up their appetites, the cows were grazing, and they said, now it's time for breakfast. Suddenly, one boy whispered something in another boy's ear. And as soon as the boy heard it, he grabbed one of the other boy's breakfast box and put it behind his back. And the boy said, give me back my breakfast. And he brought his hand in front and said, I don't have it. And another boy from behind had already taken it, started running, and this younger boy ran behind him and he threw it to someone and someone and someone, and breakfast was gone. And they all started laughing, and the little boy was crying. And then finally they gave him back his breakfast, and then they all laughed together. And in this way, they were having such wonderful games. While all this was going on, there was one particular person, a very wicked and powerful wizard, a magician, a sorcerer, watching all this from a distance. Extremely powerful, a mystic, an accomplished yogi with all the powers of of the most wonderful, powerful magician who could defy the laws of nature, who could be anywhere at will, take any form at will, and his name was Aghasur. And he was the youngest brother of his great sister Putana and his other brother Bakasur, both who had been wonderfully put to rest by Krishna. And here was Aghasur looking at these boys, so happy. The boys were so happy that it drove him mad. He was full of envy and hatred and jealousy. He could not tolerate. How can they be so happy? This envy filled his heart so much, and the anger that this is that boy, Krishna, who killed my brother and my sister. I will finish him. I will not only finish him, I will kill each and every one of these cowherd boys. And when these cowherd boys die, their parents will die. And the entire village, this entire community will be dead. He was seething with so much rage and anger. And he decided, this is the end. This is the last time these boys will. And with all that anger, he made a plan. He he summoned all his mystic power, all his yogic power, and he transformed himself into a gigantic serpent. And this serpent was so long, huge, massive, and he lay down exactly on the path at, on which these cowherd boys and cows were approaching. And as he lay himself down, he laid down there and he opened his mouth wide. He took the form of a python. And a python is a very special serpent which does not really hunt. But the python just lies down huge with his mouth open. And if any animal so as much as touches the mouth of the python and catches and is sucked in, there is no escape. And he took this form and wasn't an ordinary python. He was miles long. And when he opened his mouth, if you have been to the Empire State Building, then you can imagine that the top of his mouth was the top of the Empire State Building. That was the size he took. The Bhagavatam describes his length was 18 miles. That means when he opened his mouth, it was 1600 feet in the air. That's much higher than the Empire State Building, but just to give us some idea. And he opened this huge mouth and he lay down. And in the distance, these cowherd boys frolicking and playing and happy and leading the way and imitating and eating and teasing and rolling and laughing. And suddenly, one of them says, hey, what's that? And some of them laugh. Whoa, this is something new. This is so exciting. Let's go. And some of them are wondering, this looks funny. Looks like a cave. And someone says, yes. And can you see this huge cave? It has long hanging stalactites and stalagmites, these huge teeth-like structures. And some coward boy said, what's this? Warm and foul smelling air from coming out of this cave. Some of the elder boys who thought they were the wise ones, they were looking in and saying, it seems like an endless cave. And some of the wisest of boys concluded, no, this is a giant serpent. And this serpent is for our enjoyment. Let's go. And all of them fearlessly, whether they knew it or they didn't, they were happy. They were happy because they looked and they saw Krishna. And they said, what's going to happen to us? Krishna is with us. Krishna is going to take care. They didn't have the least fear. Everything they saw and everything they did, it was for Krishna. And because Krishna was with them, they had absolutely no fear of anything. And knowing that Krishna will always protect them, Krishna will always save them. There's nothing can happen to us. They started rushing ahead and they were waiting for Krishna, who now stayed behind. And Krishna, as the super soul in everyone's heart, knew exactly who this is and what this is. And he exactly knew this evil demon Aghasura has taken this form to kill all my friends and me. And Krishna just waited and stopped. And Krishna was confused. God was confused. Confused about what? He was confused that I want my friends to be happy. That's what I'm here for. I want to just see them. That's my greatest joy. And at the same time, I don't want them to enter the mouth of this demon and I don't know what's going to happen inside. And so he was confused. Should I stop them or not? And in a half-hearted voice, he still said, maybe we should not go. And nobody was paying attention to Krishna this time. They didn't care what he's saying. They weren't going to follow his instructions. And he said, "No, I think maybe we should go this way and maybe we should go that way." And they were telling Krishna, what are you scared of? Let's go. Let's enjoy. Let's see what's in here and let's see what's going to happen. And with such eagerness and joy, they all walked into the mouth of this huge demon. And all of them went inside, all the calves, all the boys. And this demon was waiting. He was waiting for the last boy, Krishna, to enter. And while this was happening, in the skies above, all the demigods and sages and all the mystic beings who aren't visible to our eyes but are always watching us, above us, over us, protecting us, all assembled in the sky. And they were so fearful. They knew the power of this evil magician. They knew who he is. And they were so scared for Krishna and the coward boys. And they thought, if Krishna enters, it's over. This is someone who's so dangerous and so powerful, you're not sure what's going to happen. And they started chanting prayers, they started invoking auspicious mantras, and they were really afraid. And Krishna saw them, looked at Aghasur and thought of his friends, and took a step into the demon's mouth. And as soon as Krishna walked in, on his tongue, which was like a 12-lane highway entering into a dark, endless cave. As Krishna walked in, suddenly this demon was as high as a brought his mouth together and closed it shut. And as soon as that happened, everyone, everywhere, alas, alas, what's going to happen now? Who's going to save Krishna? He's finished. And now, meantime, inside the belly of this demon, there was just poison, such powerful poison that all the cowherd boys and cows who had entered were unconscious. They weren't dead, but they were almost dead. They were completely unconscious. And as soon as Krishna entered and Aghasur closed his mouth. He was so excited and so happy. He said, "Fine!" All his anger and all his wrath came to a success. He said, "Finally, I've killed them. It's over. I've finished." And he was about to do what all pythons will do next, start rolling and turning and twirling and crushing everything inside. And Krishna was thinking, what should I do? I have to save my friends. What should I do? And suddenly, Krishna started to expand his tiny 5-year-old body in moments. Grew so much that this huge, miles long, and such a huge and tall monster, he blocked his throat. And as soon as his throat was constricted, Aghasur, the snake, he couldn't, there was nothing going in and out. He couldn't breathe, and his forked tongue, he, he couldn't do anything. And he opened his mouth, and his eyes started bulging, and his tongue, and he was trying to slither. He couldn't even do that. And before he knew it, his life air came in his throat, and he knew he's going to die. And Krishna, effortlessly, was just standing tall and with a loving glance protecting all his friends, absolutely undisturbed. And in the meantime, Aghasur, his he is about to die. He don't know what to do with all his yogic power and all his strength. He couldn't do anything against Krishna. And finally, a few more moments passed, and he couldn't do anything. And his life air came out of his body. But because it had no place to go, his soul had no place to escape, and so it burst from the top of his head. And when his soul came out, it went into the air, and it became so effulgent, like another sun had risen. Because that happened, and because Krishna's divine feet touched the serpent's body, suddenly this horrible smelling, foul snake body suddenly started turning very beautiful, and all that foul air disappeared, and the top of the snake's body opened up, and all the cowherd boys suddenly woke up refreshed, and they didn't know what happened. And all they said was, "Yay! Hari bol, hip hip hooray, Krishna! Yes, we knew it! Wow!" And suddenly they found themselves in a beautiful, very adventurous snake skeleton body with some skin and something here and there. It was so beautiful. It had lost all its ugliness because Krishna had touched it. And then, in front of everyone's eyes, now the demigods are watching, the sages are watching, everyone is seeing this scene. And everyone, including the cowherd boys, could see this bright light in the sky, which was actually Agasur's soul. And they saw this beautiful light in the sky, and Krishna, with such compassionate and loving eyes, looked at Aghasur, who was just a moments ago a murderer who came to kill all of them. And Krishna lovingly looked at him, and then he entered Krishna's body, indicating that Krishna was, although he came with such bad and evil intention, Krishna was happy because he thought, this little demon, he was mischievous. He came to kill all of us. But at the end of the day, my friends are happy. And if he didn't take this amazingly wondrous serpent like form, we wouldn't have had this wonderful playground. And right, Krishna was all over the cowherd boys were all over the snake body and the skeleton, and they were hanging from the bones, and they were banging against the skin, and this was an absolutely new play. They were using some of the bones as slides and some of the bones as something, and they were doing all kinds of things. They were so excited. They said, this is such this is the best playground of Vrindavan. It is so special. It has a jungle gym, it has slides, it has some amazing rides, it has Krishna. Just see what we have discovered. What were you afraid of? Oh, come on. And they were all playing, and very soon it was lunchtime. And this demon, actually, he was very envious. He was so envious. All of these um, monsters who came to attack Krishna, they actually represent something which happens in all our hearts, which isn't so so conducive and so it makes our hearts a place which is not very good, neither for ourselves nor for Krishna. And so by this, uh, when this demon, when this Aghasur saw the boys playing, he could not accept that they are happy, that they are successful, that they're doing well in their life. He could not accept that in this world, nothing happens without God's plan or God's sanction. Not a blade of grass can move without God's permission. And if God is allowing these people to be successful and happy and prosperous and flourish in their lives, that's His plan for them. And if I can't accept that, then how can I accept God's plan in my life? How will I know what's God's plan in my life if I'm not happy for His plan in someone else's life? And therefore, when Krishna finished this demon of Aghasur, it represents him finishing the envy and jealousy we sometimes feel in our own hearts. And in the meanwhile, while this was happening, Brahma, the creator of the universe, had observed this scene. And then something very special happened. This story, every evening, the cowherd boys would come back home and tell the story of the day. That, do you know what we did? And that's how the entire evening and night passed. Well, the cowherd boys telling their parents what Krishna did today and what was the adventure we had and which magic wizard came and what Krishna did and then what games we played and what we had for lunch and how Krishna laughed and teased and joked and that's how the entire night passed. But this particular story was told to the parents 1 year after it happened. Why? Because during that 1 year, something quite terrible happened. Immediately after this, um, after Aghasur had died, something terrible happened. And what terrible thing happened for 1 year, we're going to discuss on Wednesday. And it has something to do with the creator Brahma. Thank you for joining, and let us relish these pastimes together and read more about them as much as we can and get as much of these wonderful stories into our hearts and ears and lives as much as we can. So we will see you on Wednesday and see what happened for this 1 year, which is why the story was told after a year. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. Hare Krishna.